is
Make it fun.
MIP.
With Masamela Matsumo.
Mark Thompson. Get woke.
Once again, everyone, we are counting down to tomorrow, Election Day. Lord have mercy. All roads have led here. Had to check in with our loved ones who've been once again on the blackest bus and the blackest bus tour in America. Black Voters Matter. LaTosha Brown is here. LaTosha, how are you? You kind of catching your breath. This is one day you get to catch your breath, huh?
Oh, I don't know about that. You know, it's on one hand, we're just going to the next phase. The first phase is the early voting, but the election can be decided by tomorrow. And so that's why we're telling people, you know, this is like if you're in the playoffs and you've been playing 6 games and this is the last game and you got 6 minutes left. Those 6 minutes are the most important part of the entire game. And so that's what we are. We're in the fourth quarter right now. We've got less than 48 hours, less than 24 hours, actually, less than 24 hours. And we got to grind, family. We've got to grind. So we were in the early voting stage. We did everything we could to get people to early vote, and 95 million people have voted. And so we're really happy about that. But this election can be won or lost on tomorrow. Tomorrow is the day. And so we need people to not relax, not just yet. We still got to grind.
Were there any places you went where you felt like the turnout was not what it ought to be? There's been some rumors like in Florida, it wasn't what it ought to be. What was your experience?
Some of the places that we went into Florida, when we went to the Panhandle, they actually have a good turnout rate in some of the communities that we were in. And in Central Florida, we know that overall in Florida, the turnout is not comparable to what we see in places like Georgia. Y'all, we throwing down in Georgia and North Carolina and some other places. And so, part of it too, early on, I was getting information around. We knew that Trump had a stronghold in Florida, that was a state that he had a stronghold in. And also he was actually using immigrant groups, as he always does, to divide and conquer. And he was having he put a flood of money out there of radio ads that were targeted at Black men. And so what's so unfortunate around that is he was using it to exploit our frustration and our pain, that what our men are feeling, that's real. They're frustrated. And some of the pain and neglect that they've been feeling, that is real. And so here he comes, knowing that that's the case, and has been working really hard has been working. I ain't gonna say work hard because I don't think that's in his nature, but has been working to literally be able to undermine some of the work that is happening on the ground by really being able to exploit the pain of people that he don't even give a darn about, Mark. So that's what we've been hearing early on, that he flooded the radio airways, that they've been flooding social media, and that if there are any Black men that he has been targeted in particular, that has been intensified in Florida. So we've been hearing that since day one.
Do you think he's been effective in that? In swaying Black men at all?
I think yes and no. I think yes. I think that there, to the extent that I think that there are some that are frustrated. There are some that are operating. They like that Al Capone gangster kind of culture. We got to call it out. They're part of this whole bullying. I don't any rules. There's some folks who literally will fall in line with that, right? And so I think that every time that you're chipping off. And this misinformation campaign, because I can't tell you how many phone calls, people that I talked to who literally would say they would hear this on a commercial. I was like, where did you get that from? That's not true. Mm-hmm. And so I do think, unfortunately, that disinformation and misinformation, whenever it's put out there in the public sphere, it has a negative impact. And so in some ways, I certainly think that he has impacted with his lies and his exploitation as he normally does, right? What I think that he underestimated how Black people will respond to that. What he underestimated is how there would be, and I do think that he's going to experience a backlash. I think some of what has driven the numbers in many of the states have been Black folks are tired. Like, we ain't falling for the okie doke just because you're telling a lie and you're coming up with some platinum plan. We know that 80% of Black businesses have not gotten a dime out of the stimulus package. We know what we're experiencing right now with COVID-19. And so, in some ways, to say that it hasn't been impactful around what he has put in the social sphere, particularly social media, it has certainly been damaging our community. But what I will tell you is the brothers that I've been talking to, the ones that we've been talking to on the streets, even those brothers who have been bringing up some concern around not feeling a part of this election cycle, like literally they are more in alignment with us than I see with him. Even when folks are talking about Lil Wayne and whatever, wait a minute, some washed up rappers. Let me, Lil Wayne is worth $150 million. The average brother is not identified. He's an outlier in our community. He's concerned about his tax break and how he gonna get in it with them. The majority of us don't have 150 million living in the bank, sitting around in the bank. The majority of us want jobs. The majority of us want to make sure that the criminal justice system, we can't go and hire a $3-4 million attorney if something goes down for us. We need judges and DAs and people that are in position and place that will look out for our community and reduce some of the harm in our community. So what I will say is, what it seems like is when you can't sell no records no more, right? And you got a little name platform, that what you do is you run to the White House. God bless them. But at the end of the day, the real deal is those brothers on the street that are doing the work that I'm talking to. Those brothers that we're talking to, that many of them are frustrated. And I understand that, right? But many of them, their frustration is not going to lead them to not be able to see a white supremacist, particularly those of us from the dirty South. Oh, we know what time it is.
So I think too, honestly, LaTosha, when Ice Cube came out, it helped mobilize us. See, people it was kind of, nebulous and vague, but folk got pissed off with Ice Cube, they did. And then if you notice, the trolls and the bots weren't programmed to defend him. They were only programmed with one message. So you didn't see a lot of them saying Ice Cube's okay them first couple of days. Black Twitter ate him alive. And to me, that might have been part of the backfiring. I think that mobilized a lot of people. They're like, Ice Cube is somebody we used to admire, F the police, and you standing with Mr. Police Union himself. I think that might be where part of the backfire is.
No, I agree. I think some of that, I think that his, I think on one piece, let me say how I see these brothers. And I'm going to say particularly Ice Cube. While I am disappointed in Ice Cube, I don't see Ice Cube and even Lil Wayne in the same category. Lil Wayne just like, I'm going up to the White House. I'm gonna put on me a red and white and blue or whatever it was, little sweater he got, and I'm gonna try to fake the funk. It was clear that he was over there for a personal agenda, and quite frankly, he sold out. Clear, right? Now I have a major critique with Ice Cube, but in many ways, I feel like he got played. That oftentimes that's what happens when you go out there, that you're going to be the lone wolf and you're going to decide that you're going to do something without really being in communication with your community. I know that he had people that he got to actually help put parts of the plan together. I know he had credible people like Claude Anderson that put some elements of that together, but that ain't the same as plugging in with community folks and activist folks who do this work day in and day out. We know the tricks of the trade. We know where some of that lies. We are also in the shape, and there can't be any plan for us without us. So no, we don't need you to be, nobody elected him to be the sole leader of the Black folk just to say that this was a plan that we wanted. That fundamentally, what I'm hoping is that I'm hoping that this brother knows that his community loves him, right? But also that we're gonna hold you accountable when you stepping out in a way that's not aligned with us. And so, brother Ice Cube, that wasn't the space to step out without really being like, this is your community. I can also say that this is a man that has been consistently supportive around Black efforts in our community. So I'm not ready to quite throw him on the bus right now, because I do think that he made a fatal flaw with his judgment and triggered, and he got dragged on Twitter, and he's gotten dragged and exploited throughout these other spaces. But I also think that is what happens when really races are able to isolate you from your people, make you think that in some way you're the exceptional Negro, and then you operate on that. Even if you had good intentions, you operate on that in a way that you're not understanding that they're actually separating you from your people. And so that's what I think with Ice Cube. I really think that that brother has a history of showing that he's been connected to us. Now, what I see about 50 Cent, and what I've heard from 50 Cent and what I've heard from Lil Wayne, they ain't in the same category. Like both of them have fundamentally said that they align with Trump. If you align with Trump, you ain't with us. And so let's be real clear with you. In my opinion, you are not standing in a space of the interests of Black people. And if you bold enough to stay out there with him, then guess what? You're going to take this whooping with him as well. And so fundamentally, those are two that are both on the been voted off the island as far as I'm concerned. But I do make a distinction.
No, I hear you. That's very well put. As far as the brothers are concerned, you know, I listen to Black women, you know, and I think most brothers do. I still think, you know, the majority of Black men are going to do the right thing. It's just this handful. So hopefully you brothers are out here listening to these sisters and doing what's right. So what is left on the agenda for Black Voters Matter? Tomorrow's it. What are you all going to be doing? Are you hitting the tour again? Are you rolling up in some key locations?
Listen, we rolling until the clock dies. Like we are working up until the very end. I do want to come back and say this too, because I think we got to push back on this narrative. There is a narrative that oftentimes try to separate us from our men, that Black women are absolutely standing in the space that we are leading. And just like for years and years and years, we have stood by our men, we've supported the leadership of our men, and we've been protective of our men, right? That right now we also need brothers to stand in that space along with us as well. And so there are some brothers that are out here doing the work, Mark, like you, like Cliff Albright, that are literally grinding and doing the work day in and day out. So we're not going to let them have this narrative that somehow Black men are working against us. 90% of Black men, what we know, are not voting for Trump. Right. At the best that he'll get is maybe that 10%. And so sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some, and sometimes folks just want to be different, right? For whatever reason, and can be narcissistic, in my opinion, and just out of touch. They just out of touch with our folks, right? But I think that fundamentally we have to take control of this narrative that Black people in general are standing together. There's not another group of people that are voting at 90% as a 90% block like Black folk are, even though that's Black men. Black women are 96%. We almost completely there. And so my point is, I think it's really important for us to really snatch that narrative and not let people make us think that Black men are turning against us. Because no, that is those outliers. Those are the ones who've been in our community, have always exploited and looked for the opportunity to exploit, or they're operating out of ignorance. So hopefully we're going to come back and we're going to get them. We might have to do a little political education and training, but we'll get them. And the ones that we don't, then go on with who you with, right? But the vast majority of our people are standing in alignment with the majority of us. And so we cannot forget that, and we cannot let that narrative be exploited.
No, we absolutely can't. So where are you headed next? Where's the bus going to be stationed on election day?
So now the bus has grown. We have 4 buses on the road right now. And we got 35 minibuses. So we everywhere. We're in 15 states. We're running caravans in 15 states right now, 35 minibuses and 4 major buses. We have major buses that are running in North Carolina, Michigan and Ohio, Georgia. We've got 2 buses in Georgia alone. And we've got mini buses in all of those spaces. So we're going to be running a minimum of 39 caravans tomorrow, or at some place all throughout the different states that we're working. Cliff and I decided to stay here in Georgia, that at the end of this campaign, we have been on this tour for over 37 days. We've been to 15 states, including we went out to LA to stand with our brother Snoop Dogg to watch him vote for the first time.
I saw that.
Yeah, so it was actually a good experience. We were in Inglewood and we were treated so well, and wound up hanging with our people. So it was really a beautiful experience. In addition to that, we literally are running our campaigns at our polling sites. Currently, what we have on tomorrow, we've got 500 Black-led, over 500. Matter of fact, it's probably close to 600 now. Black-led grassroots groups that we have funded, that are working with us, that are all doing work on tomorrow. That's groups. So even if even if they got 10 folks, in each of those groups, that lets you know the breadth. We are in it to win it. We're going to fight for our people. We're going to stand in the best that we can to do what we can. We're doing things at polling sites like provide comfort care, water and snacks and food. In addition to that, we're also working to be able to take rides to the polls. Some of our people are getting rides to the polls. We've got party at the polls. We're flushing neighborhoods. We're running caravans in those low performing neighborhoods where we got poll workers inside and outside, and we're flushing neighborhoods. What I will say is that I'm quite sure there's something else that we could have done. I'm quite sure we've made a whole lot of mistakes along the way. But what I will tell you is we tried to leave everything on the floor. We are literally trying to give everything that we knew to do in this election cycle to empower our communities on literally being able to use our voice and use our vote.
You didn't do nothing wrong, and you didn't come up short. You have been working harder than anyone else. And folks, to be very clear, a lot of the voter mobilization we've seen the past 4 years has been through Black Voters Matter and their building and the work that they've been doing. So you don't have anything to regret. I mean, I'm very proud of what you've done. We all are. And a lot of what has happened would not have happened without Black Voters Matter. That was as important a terminology as Black Lives Matter. We can talk about Black Lives Matter, but then sometimes people disconnect that from voting. We have to vote. We have to be represented. We have to be heard. And so, no, I mean, this has been incredible work that you have been doing. But you must share with us, and I understand your humility, but share with the audience some of the victories and you feel that you've had, though, LaTosha. There have been some victories. Part of our work has always been to build the capacity and local folks, and to help them to be able to get power as they defined it. And so what we're really excited about is that we've been a small part to play in some of the communities that we've been working with for them to be victorious. That, and not just on the presidential election, many of the communities that we work in, we've been working with them for the last 4 years. We've expanded into some new states this year, but many of them we've been working with over the last 3-4 years. And anytime you see the bus pull up, 99% of the time, there's work that's already been taking place. We're not just showing up and then saying, hey, on the bus. There's already work that we've been working with that community, and then we're showing up to really kind of affirm what is happening. Some of the things that are really big highlights to me is, one of our first races down in Americus, Georgia, there was a race down there that there was a Republican that held the seat that was not good to our people. And so there was a sizable Black population. We couldn't understand why they didn't have representation that could look out for their interests. And so ultimately, Cliff got involved in that race. That was our very, very first race. For less than $2,000, almost, I think like $1,500, we got involved in that race. Cliff went down, helped them to organize, connected with them, and they flipped that seat for less than $2,000, because it wasn't just about the money. It was about the strategy. It was about the aligning interests. It was around creating a coordinated response and organizing on the ground. And the significance of that particular race is, while it was a state seat, that seat was the one seat that kept the Republicans from having a supermajority. They had a majority, but one seat kept them from having a supermajority. And that was less than $2,000. And then when we look at the campaign that really, I think people got to learn a lot about our work was in Alabama. Right. We were able to participate and be a part of the Doug Jones, Roy Moore race. And essentially what we focused on, we decided to focus on the Black belt. And the Black belt showed out. It was essentially the Black belt numbers that took it over the top. And so since I am a daughter of a Black belt, Cliff has also spent a significant amount of time, met his wife, and lived down there for a number of years. What we did is we decided to focus on 32 organizations that were
throughout the Black Belt. Some of them were led by mentors of mine of why I do the work that I do, from Fire Rose Ray and Hank Sanders, and many others who have been doing this work for a number of years. And we knew that what we wanted to do is to just bring some resources to bear to actually be able to expand the work that's happening. So that's one of the things. You know, one of the other pieces that I'm super excited about is what the folks did in Nashville. In Nashville, Tennessee, there was a community oversight board that the local community wanted to make sure that we had some mechanism to hold the police accountable. In that particular race, the Fraternal Order Police spent millions of dollars to kill that because they didn't want any accountability. And this group that we worked with, that was grassroots, many of them were paying stuff out of their pockets. We wound up coming and being their funder. And I think we wound up being their largest funder, and we funded them at, I think, $30,000. So imagine, they've got just a couple of thousand over here, and then you got the big old FOP. They had millions of dollars, and they beat them like they stole something. And so, I mean, because part of it is there's some things money can't buy. Money can't buy the heart, can't capture the hearts, the spirits, the minds, and imaginations of our people. And so they can pull as many washed up rappers to the White House as they want to. Fundamentally, if we are literally tapped into the spirit of Black folk, and we know what time it is. When you talk about white supremacists and races and all those dog whistles, no, we know what time it is. That when we're tapped into our people in that way, and they see that we're authentic, when they see that we're literally trying to build power for us, then our people respond. We always meet the rise. We rise to the occasion. And so the one thing that I will stay out of this whole process is I love me some Black people.
Indeed. LaTosha Brown, folks of the Black Voters Matter bus tour and everything, and Black Voters Matter is going to keep on going even after tomorrow. Yeah, but let me just ask you about that before we go. What are there any things that you're thinking about or planning in case there's some funny business tomorrow and Wednesday? I mean, we may need to mobilize our people some more if folk act like they don't want to count all our ballots or play some games like that. What do you think?
Listen, y'all, we stay ready. We stay ready. We are literally trying to focus. What I will say is I don't want people to worry too much about that. We want to plan, but right now let's deal with what is at hand. We've got to show up in record numbers on tomorrow, and we will respond accordingly as we always do. When you got people that give their vote, when you got people who have stood in line for 8 hours, they ain't gonna take too kindly to their vote not being counted. My point is, I do think that there is a trend that is happening around this country that some folks just tired and fed up. And so while Trump can put all kinds of messages out there, what they're gonna do and what they're gonna try to do, I do think that there is a critical mass of people. Earlier this year, nobody thought with the George Floyd murder, you had the largest uprising ever in the history of this country. And so that's still bubbling below the surface. We ain't forgot. We have not forgotten. And so my point is, I do believe that the first order of business that we need to take care of is tomorrow. And I want us to go in tomorrow, not in a space of fear, because fear is also a tool that's been used against us for voter suppression. Right. And so I don't want us to go in tomorrow thinking of fear. I want us to go in thinking tomorrow that we're going to stand, we're going to use our agency, we're going to stand in our power, and we're ready for whatever comes, that we're going to be ready. And so we got folks, lawyers and security, we got all kinds of folks on deck. But right now, I just want us to focus on, let's stand in our power and our purpose. Let's go out and vote.
Before we go, we've got to talk about this adorable graphic that you all had done. I'm just gonna put that up for everybody to see. That is the cutest thing I've ever seen. Look at y'all. That's Cliff driving the bus, y'all.
Cliff is driving the bus, and I'm hanging out.
That is so cool. I love it. And congratulations on that. Give Brother Cliff our love. You all continue to be safe and do everything you're doing. Folks, look for the bus too. Look for Black Voters Matter. And whenever they show up, it's always a party and people are enthusiastic. They're dancing at the polls. Final closing words, LaTosha. Give everybody the charge, the assignment
The final closing words, y'all, we deserve a little joy. And so in this case, that's what I'm saying. We can't let the devil take our joy. That fundamentally, our power isn't about the power what the U.S. government gives us. Our power is because God has given us our power. And anytime that, and what's in our power is the power of choice. That is what makes us human beings. And so anybody that stands in the way of that is standing in the way of trying to interrupt into the power of God has given us. And so it's not that we're putting the focus on the vote. We're putting the focus on us. It's our agency. Whenever we have stood, right, things got to fall. When we stand in our space of our power and our authenticity and all that we have to offer, things have to fall. Because if it was up to some folk, we still wouldn't even be existing. The fact that they talking about black voters right now, the fact that Trump got to spend millions of dollars of trying to mislead us, the fact that he got to pull folks like Lil Wayne over to the White House that act like he like him for a minute speaks to our power and our resiliency. So I just want to remind us who we are and who is behind us. At the end of the day, the way I see it, us plus God is a majority. So come on, family, let's work.
Woo. Yeah, she got a preach on too. We love you, sister.
Love you too, brother.
We'll check in on you tomorrow. And folks, Black Voters Matter. Very important work they're doing. Thank you, LaTosha.
Thank you.
All right.